So let's try to use third approach called as external CSS file. Okay, go back to our VS Code and let's create a new external file here. Okay, it's called style.css. Okay, so we already have a file called style.css. Let's add our code here. This entire code should go in this file. Okay, let's save this file. This file is saved now. We have removed the styles from here. Let's remove this style. Let's go back and see if everything is in place like as it was before. Okay, it's back to its default. There is no styling applied now, correct? No styles. Let's go back to VS Code and let's try to refer this file from our HTML file. Okay, how to do that is you use link tag and you tell them that the relevance is style sheet, that this is a style sheet file that I want to load from. Href is your like hyperlink reference, or in other words it's a URL. Okay, from where the file will come. So since the file is the same directory, you can just write style.css. Okay, and if you close this, what internally the browser does is when it comes across, so we know the processing happens from top to bottom. Okay, so it reads this thing. Okay, it reads the head section, it comes at the link. Okay, and when it encounters this link attribute, it understands that okay, I'm trying to link something. Okay, then it reads about this attribute. This attribute names a relationship of the link document, the current document. So what is the relationship? It is style sheet. Sheet means our paper. Style means it's a paper which has styles defined. Okay. So it understands that I want to refer a paper on which my stylings are defined. And now where that paper is? This paper is at href. So href is an attribute which specifies the URL of the linked resource. So the paper is at this location, style.css. Okay. So now internally it will translate this thing to, so it will look as good as this style and whatever styles you want to provide here. Okay, so that is how it will look like internally. Okay, so let's go back. Now we should see our styles again. See, so this is called as referring styles from external file. Correct, this is where your styles are coming from. So what we did, we covered the three approaches to define a styling for an element. Okay, now this completes our one objective. Let's cover our second objective, which is how to target the same element using different selectors. Okay, so our problem statement changes a little bit. Okay, let's go to our next slide. What is the problem we are trying to solve? Okay, in the previous example, which is the code snippet, use different selectors to style the input element where type is email. Again, we need to change the styling of input type email. Please use below selectors and explain their use cases. In simpler words, when you should use which selector. Okay, class selector, ID selector, and element type selector. So let's see how to use class selector first, and then we'll explain why we need to use them when. Okay, let's go back to our code and let's define a class first for this input type email. Okay, the class will be user email. Okay, now when you want to target a element using class selector, what you do is you go to your file. Okay, and you use dot operator. Okay, dot your class name and then whatever styles you want to give it. So we want to use same styles. Okay, let's comment this out. So if I comment this out, so in CSS you comment like this, okay? If you comment like this, the browser will ignore this thing. It will not use the stylings. If I change the color here to orange, it will have no impact because it will not. This is called as comments. In codes, you use comment when you want something to be there but not executed, okay? So the thing about class selector is you need to use dot operator. Okay, this is dot operator. Now what you did, you defined a new class attribute, okay? You gave some value to it, and you defined the stylings in your external file, okay? Let's go and check if this is reflected or not. So if you go here to your input element, you should see a class defined here, correct? And for that class, you can see the styles are coming like this. It also tells you from which file the style is coming. If you go on this here and click on this file, it will open this file as it is, right? Okay, so now we have used a class. Let's use another selector, which is ID. Okay, so let's go back to our file. Let's see what the ID is. The ID is this. Let's copy this. For ID, what you use is hash, or hash followed by ID and then the given styles. Let's save this file. Let's comment this out. Now we should be able to see same styles, but the difference will be it is coming from ID now. Can you see hash? Correct? The third is now input or HTML type, element type. Okay. So in our element is input. Okay. Now the possibility here is when we will target this element by type, it will also apply the stylings to this element. Okay, that is okay because we are targeting it by type. Since there are two elements of that type, two elements will match criteria and the styles will get applied to it. So let's input, and for element type you do not give dot or hash. Simply write it what type you want to target. Okay, let's give styles. Save this. Let's go back to UI. Got it? If you see how the styles are applied, yeah, it's coming as a element type. The primary difference between these three selectors is how you write it. Okay, if you are using it dot, it means it's class based selector, hash ID selector, and directly element type means element type selector. Okay, now the use case. Now why, in which cases you should use which selector. Okay, now let's go back to your UI. Let's go back to our class based styles. Let's comment this out. Let's uncomment this style. So imagine that on your page there are 5 input types for email, like your email, your spouse's email, your daughter's email, okay? And you want the same styles to be applied to all the input fields, because see, you might have seen a lot of forms where everything is uniform. The name field, like middle name, first name and last name, they have same width, right? Because they are of the same category, same group. So in that case where you might want to reuse your style, you can use class selector. Okay, and this is the selector that will be mostly used, like 95% we will be using class selector only, because it gives you reusability, and in coding it's very important. Okay, now when you need ID, So let's now on any page the button is unique, right? There is only one submit button on any form, right? So in that case where you know that only one element exists, or you want to target only one element, and even by accident you do not want to apply those stylings to any other element, you go for ID selector, correct? Because ID is unique and there will be only one element in your entire page which will match that ID. That time you should use your ID selector. And talking about your input or HTML selector, HTML element type selector, what you can do is, imagine that your page has lot of paragraphs. I can give you an action. Okay, let's see these three as in action first. So let's say you have 4 paragraphs on your page and you want all the paragraphs to be, let's say, orange in color, right? So what you can do is, simply you can go and tell the browser that okay, for every paragraph make it orange. How can you do that? You can specify the type of the element P, and you can tell them that okay, let's make the color to orange, and this should do it. The problem with that is it will apply to all the paragraphs. So there might be a possibility where you don't want to apply it, it will apply to there as well. Correct? So let's see three things in action. Okay. So let's say let's give an ID to the submit button. Can be ID equal to submit button, and let's give it by, maybe let's give it border color to be purple. Okay, border is 2 pixel, solid purple. Let's go back, add 4 paragraphs. Two, three, 4. Let's add some space between this. So BR is line break. It will give additional line between these paragraphs. Okay. It's just sample text I want to add so that the paragraph looks bigger. Because if you add a small sentence, it will look very small, and that will not give you the actual feel of learning it. So I added 4 paragraphs, and as per my stylings, every paragraph should have color orange. Okay. So let's save this. Our button, it's unique. It should have purple border. It should have orange color. The rest of the things will stay same. See, our paragraphs of the same thing. The buttons, they did not get the styles yet because ID was submit button, and what we use in styling for ID is we use class selector. So you see the problem, right? The styles are not applied because what happened is we told the browser to look for a class called submit button. Okay, but there is no class called as submit button. There is a ID. Correct? So let's fix this. Let's change this class to ID, and you should see your styles applied. Make sense? Correct? So this is the beauty of selectors. Now let's say I want to add one more paragraph which should not have the same styles. Okay, so I'll add this. I am different, paint me in red. Okay, but what will happen is we cannot, because the style is applied using element type. So to fix this problem, let's add class attribute to all of these elements. Class equal to orange para, so that only the paragraphs which have this class will be orange in color. Let's add styling for this. Go to your style file, and instead of p tag, let's use a class selector. I'm different, paint me red. So let's paint this in red using inline styles. P style is equal to color, it's red. Sounds good? Okay. So this is how we use selectors, and we talked about the use cases for our selectors. Exercise. Now, since you now understood both the parts, you can definitely do these exercises. I'll share this with you, this entire slideshow, and you can practice this thing on your own.